in Nteri's side is very remarkable. Now, bringing that conversation to context, today we're talking business, tax and policies. Now, given that we're celebrating the women in a country, a few women in this country don't pay attention to the tax policies whatsoever, and they don't even know that these policies are affecting them. Now, to understand this conversation, I'm joined by Susan Agwang, a program manager from the Africa Freedom for Information Center. Good morning, Susan. Happy Women's Day.
Thank you.
Now, talking about policies and taxes, let's start with the most important question. Should taxes be gender blind? Should they be neutral? Should there be a deliberate effort to have tax policies that they're gender sensitive in one or the other?
Okay, actually the right word that I was going to use is taxes should be very gender sensitive.
Why?
We've all come from far. You know, when you look at the different types of taxes, many a times they affect women than they affect the men. Okay. And this is largely based on so many reasons. If you look at gender disparity, if you look at different opportunities available, what are the challenges, are the effects, you will find that at the end of the day they affect women much more than the men. And unfortunately then comes the conversation, do we as the women know that we actually are entitled to participate in...
Do you even care to know?
We do care, and I encourage everyone to care. Personally, I care, and I encourage everyone to care about, you know, these gender policies. Because if you have women in tax administration, it's largely believed that women are concerned more about the impact of taxes on the gender, the women specifically, but not just only the women, but, you know, the impact of taxes. That is, and we've seen evidence of this, you know, look at women in business, those who have made it, look at women in tax administration. Just a few months ago, we had Doris Akol heading the Uganda Revenue Authority, but even before her,
there was a lady there.
There was a lady. And mark you, in 2018, URA actually conducted a small assessment within their place within URA, that how do men look at taxes policies on women, and how is the performance of women at URA, and what is generally the perception of society on women in administration of taxes. And I must tell you that the findings were not very good. They were alarming in the sense that we still have less or limited representation of women in tax administration. And yet, the good thing that came out of the study was even the men believed that actually women do good in tax administration. So they really play a critical role.
So how do we bridge the gap, given that those who are there are very critical and they're very hardworking and they make the changes we want? How do we bring the other bloc on board?
Now, this goes back to governments largely, and then us, of course, at the end of the day. But for us to know the benefit of tax policies, we need to be involved. We need to participate. We need to undertake trainings. We need to know all these things. So first of all, government needs to come up with policies that are gender sensitive. You realize that in tax administration, especially in low development countries like Uganda, we get so much of our taxes from the indirect taxes like VAT.
Oh, yes.
That is the biggest.
I feel it.
Exactly. That is where we get so much of our taxes. And remember that these are contributed by small business, and women are many in small businesses than the established ones. So you find that for example, I'll give an example of myself. I used to work in 4 places sometime because I wanted an income.
Wow.
Yes, I used to teach in 2 universities, and then I had a job somewhere else, and I wanted to get into business as well.
Another part-time as well.
Exactly. And why was this? I was looking for income because women consume more when you look at family setting. Well, you may come with the money.
Even without family setting, women you have a spending spree kind of feel in life.
Yes, but now I'm looking at sustaining family. We spend more. That is true. And we spend even on the people who give us the money. So if my husband gives me money, for example, I'm going to invest that money back to family. I'm going to buy salt. I'm going to buy everything. So I spend so much money. I am paying tax on salt. I'm paying tax going to the saloon. So many things. Yes. So we need to have these policies that are progressive and not regressive if we want to have women actually participate.
In Uganda, how does the tax policy affect the women, for starters, to understand it more?
Okay, now I'll give you an example. We have multi-billion companies in Uganda enjoying tax holidays.
True.
But we do not have these tax holidays for example,
for the informal sector.
Exactly, like let's say, let's promote women in business. We've had so much conversation on procurement, how many women, for example, participate in procurement. Yes, we have the policies, but having a conversation on policies is one thing, but there is also another thing, which is implementation of the policies.
Yes.
I don't want to say that government has paid a deaf ear or closed its eyes towards taxation and women, but there's little research that has been done in that angle. So we need to realize that there's policies, we need to implement these policies, but let us give incentives to these women. And
to be motivated.
Exactly, and we need to talk about them. Like, I'm glad we're talking about it now. I wish so many more women actually get to know about this. And because many of them are in the informal sector, we need to reach them. And who can reach them? Obligation is largely on government.
And what are some of these policies that that need to be addressed using the tax policy if women are to shift from one block of being illiterate about tax policies to a block where now you're interested and you know?
Now, let me start by giving an example of the Global South.
Yep.
They have so many, I would call them really incentive policies that promote tax, compliance, but also equal benefit for both the men and the women. And one of them is they actually don't tax sanitary towels. We've had that conversation in Uganda. It hasn't materialized.
I saw one that was going on. Was it in the UK, in the recent past, and in Australia, where the women came on the streets? We don't want the tax.
Yeah. So we have, we need to have those kind of incentives. If I come to that specific one, that there are countries that don't tax agricultural production generally, because we know that women are so much in agriculture. Just a few months ago, there was conversation on government is proposing to tax withdrawals from the ATMs.
You saw how everyone went up in arms.
Now that is going to pull back the women, for example, those in business. They're going to go back to keep money in their mattresses, pillows, name them. But if you want to get the woman to come out and participate, we need to have progressive policies, I repeat. And progressive policies in Uganda, we should by now start thinking about, let's not tax, or let's reduce taxation on agricultural production. Let's reduce taxation on generally business consumables that women spend more on if we want them to come up.
So you allow them to thrive business-wise and equally have the saving culture that can reinvest.
Yeah, that's true.
Are the decision makers listening to these proposals from the strategic level or from the policy makers, the technocrats? Are they paying attention?
I think they are. I think they are.
Okay.
Maybe the challenge is they have not yet taken it seriously. I said in the beginning that we have little research on taxation and gender. We have not invested, yes. Yeah, and this is where I would call on Uganda Revenue Authority should take a lead on this. We need to have ample research on tax and gender, because we've already seen the impacts. It's so much on the women than the men. Yeah, we consume more as women, we're taxed more, but then we're only looking at, in Uganda, when we look at taxes, we're thinking about an NGO has to pay tax, a big company has to pay tax. But we forget that the VAT, the invisible ones, is actually what women pay more. So this is really, it would be a great initiative starting from URA. Then it will, the multiplier effect will come. Yes, they need to listen. And the women who have the opportunity to be in the tax administration, those who have made it to that level, let's not forget ourselves below. Let's remember all of us. Yes.
You pull the ones down. Okay. That is Guang Susan from the African Center for Information. It's very key that you get involved with regards to taxation. Be much more interested. Love what you do. But just before I conclude this, what is the call to action to the women? I want you to give the call to action because now we've given the policymakers and we have given the government and the entities that are within that block. What's the call to action to the women then?
Two-way. My call action is two-way. First, to government. We're tired of talking about policies. They're there. We know them. But we're seeing them not working. So let's move from policy to implementation of those policies.
Nice.
I know they're there, but we need to act on them. And then out to the ladies, to me, let's take interest in these things. When you come out to participate and push, because sometimes government needs a push factor. If we do not know
You
we
can't
are not
push.
going to change. So information is key. Let's embrace, let's be interested in knowledge, and then we are able to inform policies. And those in administration, especially in tax administration, let's talk to ourselves and get us moving.
Well, that brings us to the end of the conversation. Women in business, as we're still celebrating the women this entire week. Well, challenge yourself, get to know more about the tax policies. As we're finalizing the show, I want to say happy birthday to my colleague Raymond Tamale. Today he makes 35, I guess, so something of the sort. We want to wish you a very happy birthday, and to all those celebrating birthdays around the country. Shortly after me, Farida Nakazwe is coming up next with Mwasu Zamutia. I'm Andrew Chamagiro Omuntu Awensi. Good morning.